everybody, welcome back to the Bill and Ray Show. I'm out in the torch shop to make another vortex marble, and today I'm going to do a fumed piece in the core, which is similar to what I've done in other things, but I'm going to switch it to a different axis. So we're going to try that, see how that goes. Let's get fired up here. So the first thing I need to do is I'm going to make some colored frit simple cane to put kind of behind the center fume piece. Just try this, see if it'll show up. It may not really do a lot, but we'll see. So we're just going to heat a bit of our 8mm rod here. Drop it in some frit. And kind of a couple applications. So this isn't going to be covered up, cased or anything. It's just going to be a simple piece of clear glass covered in frit. So we're just going to pull this down a little thinner. Kind of stretches that frit out into a little different shape. And we need more than that, so we're just going to kind of repeat this. Just come off of here. And maybe clean that end off. Just tag this along to the end. Pull this one down a little bit as well. Oh, I'm getting thin at my connection here. Push this together a little bit. Okay, cut this loose. Yeah, it's one of these steps that I'm not sure really if this is going to be very visible or not. But I thought I'd give it a go. So the main attraction inside this marble is going to be a twisted up piece of fume. Turn on our little garage here, a little heated garage. So we're going to do this working on a 10mm rod, and then I pulled out some clear stringer that will actually just draw lines on here. But I'm going to kind of make a termination out here. Need to heat up our glass before we can fume it. This is a little tricky to figure out the right heat to fume at, because I'm going to start off with gold. And I'm going to do it kind of vertical. See if we can pluck some gold off of here and get it to stick. I'm going to rotate just slightly. And get this gold to cover basically kind of 1/2. Pause this a minute, let it cool down. I want this to be pretty strong fuming. So we'll kind of build this up in steps. We'll let it cool down just a moment. If you don't let it cool down, you might just keep burning off the fume that you've already laid down. So that looks pretty good. I put that little dot of clear on here so I can figure out what orientation. So I want to be 180 degrees out. And I'm going to do some silver. Okay, now we have kind of a two-tone fuming. It's pretty dense. And we've got our clear stringer. I'm going to run down lines. Alright, now we've got some lines on there. Now, this in. Jeez, getting caught up here. Now, as usual, I like to try and get this to heat up to where it's burning out the fume in between the lines, and it's a pretty dense fume. This may not all burn out, but work on that a little. So one side wants to burn out easier than the other. When you do a fume like this, it's going to, wrap around the rod as well, so there's kind of a mix. There's hopefully kind of a pure section that's just silver and just gold, and then there's a whole bunch of mixed zone. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to detach this one end. Let's see if I can get another small 3mm handle on here. So in this design, this is basically just a single twist zone. Get over to this side, the plenty connection gets so hot it's not really getting much control over it to twist it. So it takes a lot of fiddling there to get that to twist up. Okay, let's try and get this whole thing burned in. Now, tricksy part. I want to condense this whole thing into kind of more of a disc. So first, I'll kind of bring it into closer to a ball. Then we're going to detach this side, clean up the termination. And we're trying to kind of keep this on axis. So in fact, the more you can have this straight on axis, the better. Now, I have this little, hopefully this thing isn't too hot. This little mold piece is just a real shallow dish. You could use a large marble mold or whatever for this next step, but I'm trying to kind of heat up in the middle, not just on that tip. We're going to come into this mold and gently, I'm blocking it all different directions, come into it very gently. Again, kind of trying to heat up the mass and not that face so much. Okay, just little by little, kind of slow iterations, and get this spread out, become a bit more like a disc. Now this puntied side is getting kind of smushed up. I'm really kind of focused on the outer front face. I think that's about where I want to be. So this is going to go into the little heated garage. May or may not be all that necessary, but as long as you have it. This will help when I reintroduce that piece. And guess what? I've got to get a big fat rod. Back to business. Got our big fat rod here. We're going to prepare this end to receive that little piece that I just made with the fuming. So we'll clean up this cut end. Anytime you have a cut end, you introduce that into the flame and it's going to create some fizzy glass along that edge that overheats and boils. I'm sure there's other ways to handle this, but I just am accustomed to just pulling off a little bit of glass there on the end. And then we're kind of looking for a surface. You get scratches and stuff on the surface. Sometimes it's easier just to kind of peel off the whole outer layer, make sure we're down to some nice clean glass. So this next step is kind of the critical junction of fusing that separate fume piece into the end of this clear rod. So we need a pretty good mass. If you think about the diameters, it'd be nice to have the end of this be similar diameter. So just have this up at a slight angle, let this just kind of keep falling back on itself, and it's condensing right now into a larger mass of glass on the end. So, how's everybody doing today? Beautiful day here at the Bitterroot. We're busy getting ready for the fair. It's really our one big event we do. It's coming up here at the end of the month. So spent a long time through the summer creating inventory, but then you got all these bits and bobs that you need just to conduct the fair. All the things we have to order, make sure we have enough pieces and parts, and so we're kind of making a few orders, not a whole ton, but make sure I have enough glass on hand, all that good stuff. So now we got our piece out of the garage. Make sure that's plenty warm. At the end of our clear rod is what I want to be really kind of superheated, so that when these come together, it will flow. I'm trying to get that heat into that groove so that it flows. Two pieces flow together. Okay, my handle's not doing much at this point, so I'm going to get rid of this. Now you'd like this to be all perfectly on center. Doesn't always quite work that way, with a little bit of offset. Now again, we're going to let that fume piece kind of fall back. So, well, first before I do that step, I want to clean up this termination. Okay, that's looking good. Then we're going to go back to the same mold that I used. And see, we're trying to make that fuming kind of more of a disc. So I had this in mind. We're getting there. But then, in order to get, and this may not have much of a vortex effect, but in order to get this cone shape, I was thinking of different ways to accomplish that. And that's what this frit cane was all about. So we're using this to build up some glass on the back that'll still be inside the interior. I considered just doing this with clear glass, but it's one of those things. This may or may not be a good idea. This might be a little too dense to really make the rest of the colors show up very well. But hopefully you kind of get the idea that I'm trying to get some material there to make my cone-shaped interior of the marble. Yeah, this is looking good. Now, the idea was to back this with a black frit and then red base color. So we are up to black frit now. So you add all these different layers, and they may obscure one another, so we'll see how this ends up. You can really see what's going on in the background. But sometimes this layering of different colors and effects has its own intrigue, even though it may be kind of subtle. Tempting to multitask. All right. Now the next step will be to add red as the backing. It'll show up on the rim anyway. Yeah, we'll be taking this torch setup and my other smaller cheetah torch setup. I did this the last couple of years, and it's a little bit much to have so much equipment down there and so on, but I'll work with the cheetah torch during the bulk of the daylight and switch to this larger torch in the evening when I do like globe ornaments and or just kind of blown stuff. The smaller torch, for one, if the weather's hot and stuff, it's less heat to deal with. And it's actually a much better torch for making small pendants and small marbles, maybe some small blown stuff like shot glasses. But it seems like every year I've changed things around with the propane and oxygen lines and stuff. I have to kind of reassess what I've got for hoses and fittings, and I always seem like I'm ordering some more connections so that I can take things apart and put things together without too much trouble. And a lot of these little fittings, I was in, well, it's, a couple years ago now, but I was in our local welding shop, welding supply shop in town, looking for what I thought was some pretty basic, simple parts. No, don't have those. Those guys used to be able to hook me up pretty good with different fittings and so on, but I wind up, I'm going to go on eBay and see if I can find a decent deal, because some of these supply houses, they want an arm and a leg for a fitting, and plus shipping. So it can be a little frustrating trying to get simple connectors. But I think we got it. Got all the parts that I need in-house. Alright, moving onwards and upwards. So when we're down at the fair, we set up our torch booth with some plexiglass sides. And I've got some of these didymium lenses from some old glasses from way back when. And we put one of those on each of the side panels, tape it on the plexiglass, and kids can come up and they can see the torch work through the basic filter. And that's really been a cool thing for the kids, and when they drag their parents over and say, "Mom, you got to check this out." Some of the geeky science outreach to try and explain to people what that's all about. Filtering out the sodium yellow flare. Okay, build up the backing. And then we take our small kiln that I'm using here today, we take that down there, but I don't want it plugged in overnight when we're gone. We're there from 8 in the morning till 10 at night basically, and so by the time we're packed up and bugging out at 10:30, I want to be able to just unplug everything and have everything unplugged, no power on anything while we're gone. So I always have to remember to set the kiln forward to start annealing at like 5 o'clock or something, so it has a chance to go through the main segment of the annealing cycle. And then the work that I make after that hour, that all has to just be dealt with to air cool, take it home, and we'll put it in another kiln that we have here and try and anneal that overnight. And the only problem is there's not enough hours overnight because we're leaving in the morning before I can try and get down there about 8 o'clock. And so I'll come out here when I get up at 5:30 in the morning or something or other, and come out and just like open up the kiln and try and get it to cool down enough, and then I'll still be pulling stuff out of there with my gloves or tongs or whatever. Everything's still pretty hotsy-totsy. But by then it's, you know, it's down to a couple hundred degrees, and that's okay with this type of glass. For a blown ornament and stuff, it's already done all its annealing cycle, and it can take it to just air cool from that point. Because the other kiln that I used to do that is a kiln that I put together, and it's a lot of brick. It holds a lot of heat. So that last part of the annealing cycle cooling down, it's pretty slow to get down to decent temperature. So hopefully the next day that we're set up at the fair, we've got a bunch of new glass that I just made the day before. The old marble mug. A little cold coffee there, that's alright. Actually quite a lot of things that I've kind of learned. We take the good old-fashioned, old-school vermiculite, a tray of vermiculite down there, and got some small trays that have just the ceramic woolen pad in there that things like a blown ornament can sit down in that pad and cool off. Seems to work pretty well. I don't have a whole lot of loss. Knock on wood. Hopefully I don't have much loss. Things cracking. There's a lot of variables when you're trying to do stuff outdoors, and a lot of distractions and talking with people, and sometimes you kind of get off your game at keeping things heated where they need to be heated, and you wind up with some problems. And occasionally I've had a tube of glass down there. I remember last year late in the day, they just kept cracking. I could not seem to baby it along to work for me, so I ended up just like trashing a whole section of tubing. So pick a different tube, see if it works better. Sometimes you just have sections of glass that I don't know for sure if it's the glass or it's just me. But I will tell you, glass understands when you're not in a good mood. It picks up on your vibe, man. Let's do a little bit more on here. So we try and keep a happy vibe in here when we're working with the glass. Listen to some good music. Take breaks. When I first switched from soft glass to borosilicate glass, I thought, oh, this is so much easier. You don't have to worry about things cracking and breaking. It's like, oh, that's just not true. It still has issues. You can tolerate a lot more, but just when you least expect it, tink! Like, wow, what happened? Situated here quite right. Alright, we got back color black, mist, and teal. Really tealy. And we had another wedding last Saturday. Their neighbor's son getting married. Yeah, it's a real nice gathering. But during their service, they were outdoors. And the wind was just about not going to happen because the wind was just really blowing. And then after the service, when we went inside this big barn sort of place, and then the weather got even crazier. It was really blowing hard enough it caused some damage, some trees broken, and but then a little bit later, skies opened up as it often does in Montana, and it was just gorgeous. Looked like a Charlie Russell painting out there. It was just incredible clouds, contrast, colors. Of course, we've got a little bit of smoke in the region from the forest fires, and it just adds all kinds of color to the sunsets and sunrise. At another wedding where us older folks took off at a reasonable hour and let the kids party on until whenever. And pop a few of these little bubbles that I saw. That's probably alright. And then this weekend, which is like, I'm taping this on Thursday, the 15th, and we have our local Celtic festival Saturday and Sunday. We'll go down Saturday. It's when most of the competition is going on, and it's supposed to be hitting 90 degrees Saturday and Sunday. So it should be a pretty good event. We do that on the grounds of the Daly Mansion. Marcus Daly had a house here, a mansion here. He lived back east, but this was his summer home. And he's the one that hired somebody or other, Hamilton, that laid out the streets for Hamilton, Montana, which is our main town here closest to us. It's a beautiful estate, and my daughter said they've got 30 clans signed up to come, so a pretty big gathering. So it's always fun to grab a glass of mead and wander around the booths. There's all kinds of booths set up selling lots of things. And then all the clan booths. And you can dig into your history a little bit, ancestry. Shoot, why are you tearing? Not supposed to do that. Some color combinations, I always kind of wonder if it's a particular color combination. Generally it has to do with the heat base. I really don't like it when it tears apart like that. Okay. Feel up that termination on the end. Push this first little bit in. And we gotta chase our boo-boos down. Yeah, these are kind of big boo-boos. Sometimes I just kind of push this in and try and get some heat on there to let the glass flow back together, kind of knit back together and peel that up. That it always leaves a little obvious boo-boo mark on the back side. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. And I'm sure it was last weekend, sometime fairly recently, Butte, Montana had an Irish festival. And Butte is a mining town, basically, copper mining. And has a big history of Irish miners that worked there. But of course, through the years, times have changed, and there's fewer and fewer Irish families there, I guess, but still a deep history of the community. I think people were concerned that they wouldn't be able to keep doing it, but I think they will. The summer season is kind of wrapping up with all these events happening, and all of a sudden, after our county fair here, which is the very end of the summer, and right after the fair, the kids go back to school. You know, our grandkids in San Diego are already back to school this week, but a couple of our local schools, so through the years, they basically wait until after the fair to start school, because kids aren't going to be focused on school. They're going to be all wanting to go to the fair, and a lot of the kids are in 4-H, of course, and they have their animals that they're showing and auctioning. So it's kind of hard to ask them to get back to school before they're done with their 4-H projects. I don't have a real insight on that locally. I know in Missoula, the 4-H, the whole thing is kind of been on a downhill slide. There's fewer kids interested in it. It's more of an urban environment. But down here in Ravalli County, we've got, I think, still quite a lot of farm kids. But it is changing, you know, there used to be a lot more. So these Kevlar sleeves are really nice, and part of my arm that's not covered by the sleeves, it's definitely feeling that heat. I'm going to neck down this rod so I can cut it loose. Okay, I'll try and do the rip-torn business. Well, we just finished up a couple nights ago watching Lost. There's a lot of talk about it online. I guess there's some programs out there on YouTube digging into the making of and history and whatever. hard to say how many times I've seen it. This probably was the 4th time, I guess, I've watched it. Makes more sense, I guess, to me now. When first time I saw it, I just didn't really understand what was going on in the last season. It's just, it veered off so far from the parts that I enjoyed watching, but it's interesting to watch it again with a little different perspective, and I'll watch for more of the story that's being told. It's kind of fun to see a show that's 20 years old come back around and get a lot of interest online. Now we gotta find something else to watch. And my wife and I both always kind of remember back to when we had our little store in Corvallis. We had a good internet hookup down there, better than we could get at home for sure. And we had sort of an office room with a computer in there, and so we were running a lot of online business as well as the retail out of the store, and doing the market, and a lot going on. But anyway, that's when we first discovered binge watching a show. We were watching Bones, which is another series that I've watched a couple times. But the little store wasn't very busy. We didn't have a whole lot of foot traffic coming in, so there's a lot of hours sitting in the store not doing much. But then I did set up a torch station down there, and actually have this cheetah torch that I have set up now here. And I made a lot of product while I was down there. It was best when both of us were working in the store and I could stay on the torch and Ray could deal with customers. It was a pretty magical time. But as so many things, at some point it just got to be, the squeeze wasn't worth the juice. It was a good experience though for quite a stretch there, because I kind of reacquainted myself with where we live. You know, you live someplace and you get used to it, take it all for granted. But we really are very fortunate to live where we do. And when we had the store, we were right down by the busy secondary highway and had a four-way stop right there next to us. And the fire department would empty out a couple times a day, and there was an elementary school right next door that was pretty noisy at break time, at recess and stuff. You had to deal with literally the exhaust from the traffic. And when we'd come home to our peace and quiet and away from any traffic noise and all that. It made me really appreciate our home. I always try and take a moment now and again to just step outside and take in the sky and watch the birds and whatever wildlife we've got around here. Marble is ending up a little smaller than a lot of them that I do. So hopefully this kind of demonstrates some of the things you can do with a separate buildup of a piece that you're going to introduce into the center of one of these marbles. Sometimes there's interesting folds and twists and change of axis, all these different options that can really give you a lot more variety of what kind of work you can produce. And I haven't really explored in the realm of all the things you can do with starting with hollow work with the tubing, blow out a bubble and do the fuming and line work and so on that, then condense it down and have it into the core of a marble. I don't know if I'll get into showing any of that kind of stuff. It's usually a little bit more involved and not really my thing. I guess basically there's other people that know how to do that stuff way better than I do, so I kind of don't really want to step into territory that I'm not, really all that experienced. Makes me think about, I started making soft glass beads in '93, and I'd only been making some beads for literally I think 2 months, and there was a stained glass shop. The owner saw me at market or whatever. I'm like, why don't you do classes in you can use my space and do classes. I just thought, wow, I barely know what the heck I'm doing. I really don't feel comfortable teaching someone else how to do it. And I've always been kind of conscious of safety issues, ventilation, all that sort of thing. And I frankly didn't really want to approach it at all for a variety of reasons, but I found out not too far down the road that they had set up a couple, like 4 torches or something in the basement of this downtown building. I think, gosh, I can't remember if Robin Rogers did a class, did any teaching there or not. It seems like he was the one that was telling me about how they were set up, and maybe he had helped them get their torches set up. But to me, it was sort of like they didn't have ventilation figured out. Running propane in a basement is flat out against fire regulations. So, but anyway, I just remember being shocked that they wanted me to teach when I hardly knew a thing about it. And that's where, I can share what I'm doing here in these videos. I'm not specifically trying to teach anybody anything. I'm just sharing what I do. This is much geared towards customers as other glass workers. Okay, well, I think we're going to say this is finished on the back end. That last punty I put on, I should have waited for it to get a little more solid. That was the soft wibbly wobbly connection there. That transition zone between the color and the clear is still got a bit of wobble to it. We're getting there. Alright, man. We're just about there. Appreciate everyone that hangs out and watches these videos. Give a like and subscribe and throw in a comment if you'd like. Fun to see how this looks tomorrow. Not sure how much color we're going to pick up in the background, but we'll see. And that should do it, my friends. Awesome sauce. Sun's shining, it's warming up out there. And after this, then I get to go in and start processing video. So the kiln's heated up. Toss this guy in there. We're all good for today, so you all take care. Enjoy your day. Take care of yourselves. Take care of everyone you know around you. And we will see you next time out here in the torch shop.